this before, so we're off. I think we're off. Good stuff. So welcome to another episode of Interviewing the Greats. We have Anna Lang on today, an incredible representative from ConnectWise. Anna, as always, please introduce yourself. You're going to do a far better job than I ever would.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I feel so grateful to be here. Like Alex said, my name is Anna Lang. I am a field marketing specialist at ConnectWise. I've been in the MSP space for almost 3 years in September, full-time with ConnectWise, and have bounced between an admin role, membership, peer groups, and then now into the field marketing space. So I've kind of transitioned my career through ConnectWise, but always serving the managed service provider community and the larger IT Nation ecosystem. So
it sounds like in 3 years you've done quite a lot already, Anna. So let's gosh, where to start to unpack this? So Interviewing the Greats is all around success stories about who you are today and how did you get there. So kind of like run us through leaving college. Are you on the career path that you always imagined you would, or has it been a bit of a whirlwind of navigating through different things? Run us through out of college, how you got to who you are today.
Yeah, of course. So when I was in school at college, I tried everything in the hospitality and event management kind of realm. That was what I was going to school for. And so I did vendors and hotels, and I worked in association planning and corporate planning, and I did weddings, and I just kind of tried my hand at everything. But I got an opportunity to try corporate meeting planning with the Evolve community right after HTG had been acquired by ConnectWise. Yeah. And getting to plan that peer group. And I loved the idea of getting to do meeting planning, but within the realm of 9 to 5. Little did I know that there is no such thing as being an event manager within the realm of 9 to 5, but it was a little bit more stable than the weekends and the long nights. And so I figured like, this is my dream job out of school. And I kind of like set my sights on that. Once I graduated school, I applied at ConnectWise, I think 2 or 3 times before I finally got a job as an admin, and quickly through a series of events within like 3 months of me getting hired as an admin, I was full-time on the events team. And I ran our EMEA peer groups for Evolve. And that was like the first time that I got to see something that I think we'll get into later is like the strategy element to my strengths. And that was the first time that I really had gotten to see like that startup and that entrepreneur in myself, because me and Dan Scott had to rebuild this EMEA community post-pandemic, where everybody was just getting back in the swing of things. So I traveled over to EMEA 9 times in the last 2 years, just trying to make sure that that program was on track and getting to build some beautiful relationships that have informed.
Savage flight.
Yeah. I racked up some credit card points and miles in the meantime.
Oh, yeah. Lounge access all day long. So yeah, there's something you said that resonated quite hard, which I like, which is you applied 2 or 3 times, right? So yeah. Run me through why ConnectWise? Why did you? Because obviously thousands of jobs out there, right? Thousands of different companies, thousands of jobs. Why ConnectWise 2 or 3 times? And where I'm trying to go with that question is like the resilience piece of like, what drove ConnectWise and why did you keep trying to get into this particular company?
There's a couple of things there. So I interviewed with Kaseya, and I also interviewed with Pax8, and I interviewed with ConnectWise. And ConnectWise, to me, there's a legacy piece to that. My dad worked for Arlen at HTG.
There you go.
I grew up with my dad on the road consulting, and I've seen the effects of what the Evolve peer groups do for a family, for business owners and leaders. And I really believed in the mission of that. I knew some people on the Evolve team because the Evolve team very much is a family, and everybody knows what's going on in each other's lives. And I mean, it was a small business out of a farm in Iowa. And so everybody is like this Midwest hospitality, and everybody just like is so informed in each other's lives. So some of the people on that team have watched me grow up since I was 12, 14, 16 years old. And so I felt like it felt safe to me to join that team post grad, when I knew that I had a lot to figure out. But I also knew that like I loved that type of relationship building. The fun thing about the Evolve peer groups is that you're planning events for the same group. So you get to really craft the experience through the relationships that you build, and you really get to tailor it. And so that was one piece of like why why ConnectWise. And the other piece is that when I like started to learn more about what ConnectWise was doing, because I had been mentored by Lori Sorensen in and out throughout high school, and I'd really had a relationship with Connie and was chatting with her about the things that were going on, and Andre and some of the others on the team. So like when I really started to see what ConnectWise was doing, it was just something that I wanted to be a part of. Like there is a feeling about ConnectWise that is very still that family oriented business. Like it's just like everybody here really takes care of each other. And especially when you look at like our core values and the way that our executives are accessible to us, and the type of work that I do allows me to meet a ton of colleagues, and everybody, like no matter what punches that we're rolling with, like everybody is so optimistic and we laugh a lot together here. And I saw myself fitting in really well with the group here. And so it was always going to be ConnectWise for me, no matter how I had to get in. It took 3 times trying to get in before it finally made sense. And then it was off to the races from there, really.
And we'll talk about the races in a second and what that means for you. But going back a step to HTG days, speaking to the godfather that is Brad Scow, listening to how HTG became who it was and how it now has evolved. And I'm slightly biased. I'm a facilitator for Evolve, so I understand what we go through as a facilitator and as the space that's created for members and the power of that. And when you hear Brad describe it, he describes it in, I think, about 3 words, which is building true relationships. And for me, it almost sounds like you're talking about family right now. You're talking about Midwest family, watching you grow up. If I think about the evolution that members go through and evolve, we're all very much, it's not necessarily always about business. If we look at the way that MPD is delivered, if we look at the way that we introduce the sessions, none of it really is actually about business to start with for the first half of the first day. It's all around, where are you at? Like, talk to me about Anna, talk to me about where you are, because that unlocks a lot of the business stuff. And what we're finding is that there's a massive kind of flow between business and personal. And if you don't have that personal relationship there, which you've been alluding to this whole talk, you won't get that business growth. You won't get the buy-in. You won't understand the true potential of a business or someone open up for it, because they don't trust that you're actually going to help me with my business, or you're just going to try and take something away from me. So let's talk about this a little bit then. You've talked about family, you talk about resilience. If you were to kind of go back to Anna 3 years ago, what do you kind of wish someone had told you about this kind of career path? What do you wish someone had said to you coming into this? What do you wish you'd been told? Or what do you think you should have either been focusing on learning? What would you do different? I've asked like 5 questions there, but I think you can. Hopefully read between the lines.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been this way since I was like pretty young. I remember several conversations with my dad. Like he would put me in to kick a penalty kick when he was my soccer coach, and he'd be like, I'll pay you $20 if you score. He would, when I didn't want to like join the track team, he was like, I'll pay you $100 if you join the track team. I'll pay you $50 if you try out for hurdles. Like everything that I didn't want to do that he knew that I would probably like, or that I was afraid of the outcome of failing but needed to try, he would always incentivize me to do it. And I think about that with like this career path is like, I don't have anybody incentivizing me to try new things. And I've learned that I'm a lot more risk adverse than I thought. And so 3 years ago, I think that I was focused on the wrong things, and I was focused on saying yes to everything that came my way out of fear that I needed to prove a seat at the table. And in doing so, I feel like all I accomplished was burning myself out. And instead of thinking strategically about like what I wanted to learn or what are skills that will transfer, even if I don't know what my next role is, like I remember just taking on so much work and overcomplicating so much in the first like year and a half that I was on the team. And like funny enough, so when I took my new role, they backfilled my position. And just yesterday I was having a conversation with the brilliant woman that took over my role. Listening to her talk about the things that I did every day. She was having her one-on-one with my old manager right next to me, and they were talking through the things that she was working on. And after that conversation, I was like, I overcomplicated everything that I did so much. Like everything overwhelmed me so much. And I was so stressed about things, and I wasn't very solution oriented. And I just think that I didn't know how to stand out. And so I was just piling on the work as a way to stand out. But now I feel like in my new role, like I know what my strengths are. I know what I need to keep working on, even if it's something I'm not interested in, because it's just a good transferable skill. And I feel like my priorities are in line, and I am just much more aware of like what my capacity looks like at 85%, which is where I try to stay. I try to stay at 85. And then when things start to pile on throughout the day, you kind of end at 100. But if I'm at 100% capacity going into a Monday, like it's going to be a long Monday to try to get myself.
Oh yeah, that's a long week.
Yeah.
That's a long week. It's funny you're saying that, because just recently, I mean, I'm 32, by the way, so I think we're slightly different in ages.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only just now learning the art of saying no to things. And what I'm becoming very good at is
I'm becoming aware of it, but I'm not getting good at the practice of it yet.
Oh, trust me, Anna, it's so tough. As I said, 32 years old, and only this year, in the last maybe 4 months, am I starting to go like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
No. And it's not out of like superiority or like I'm better than that, I don't need to do these tasks anymore. What it's about is like your 100% on a Monday is I only have 100% capacity throughout a day, and I'm not going to divide that between 50 different things and give 2% to everything, right? I just had to make sure my maths was real good there, and fortunately it paid off, right? But so what I would rather is like 3, 4, maybe 5 tasks at absolute best, and I give it like 20-30% of my all, instead of loads, because I was very similar to you. I'd be like, oh man, I'm young, I'm enthusiastic, and I need to make up for that enthusiasm and seem like I'm competent as well. Because what I've learned, and a mentor of mine, Mike Symes, gave me this. He said, grounded enthusiasm is the best thing we can do. Because too enthusiastic is like, well, what are you compensating? And not enthusiastic enough is like, oh, do you even care?
Yeah.
Like, where is it? So grounded enthusiasm is like, yo, I'm here 100%, but I just want to make sure that I'm going to give this my all.
Yeah.
And that's where this kind of like skill, and this takes, as I said, it's only in the last 4 or 5 months that I really started to think, actually, I'm going to say no to that, because not because I can't do it or not because I don't want to. You won't have my all. And I think you should go and find someone that's significantly more involved in this or invested in this than I'll ever be. So let's dive into this thing, because this is a really cool like topic right here. How are you navigating that, learning to what to say no to versus what to say yes to?
Oh, this has been an issue. Again, like these themes you think that you would learn, but like even in high school, I got so sick that I was out of school for like 6 months with mono, and like thought I was going to have to be hospitalized, missed all of my finals that go to the college board to figure out what university you're going to go to. And like, I just missed the whole thing because I'd gotten myself to the point that like I was so run down from volunteering and working and school that like I was so sick I couldn't do anything. And they got me, like there was these American commercials about this paper company called Staples, and they had this red button that said no, and it just hit it and it said no in a bunch of different voices. And so a group of people who were like mentors to me had gotten me this button that said no to teach me to say no. So fast forward to what's now 7 years later, I'm seeing it so much in like work that like I just feel like if I say no to something, that like the opportunities will stop. Like if you say no to one opportunity, you'll never have another opportunity again. Where I've learned like you actually, when you say no to things that you know you don't have the time completely to give, or you're not that interested in, or you know you're not the best person for it, or whatever the reason may be that you say no to it, it actually gives you the space to be able to say yes to the things that you do want to do, that you do want to spend time with. And I think what has really started to help me is just being very sure of where my priorities are. Because when you don't know what you're measuring to, I think it's really hard to know like what the line is. And so like right now, I'm really prioritizing rest. In the new role that I'm in, I am traveling more than I ever have for not as long of a period of time, but I'm on a plane like every other week, sometimes 4 planes a week. And so I'm just really prioritizing rest when I'm home. So I've been saying no, especially in my personal life, to more things than I ever have. And just prioritizing my health, because I feel like I want to be my best at work. And thinking about some of those habits, like to be candid, like if you're thinking about like your highest and best self, you know, like drinking on the weeknights is not for me how I'm going to achieve that, because my body is already run down from all of the travel. I'm already exhausted. And then I'm competing with my own morning routine There's a good saying about every drink that you have the night before is taking time from the next day. And I think that that's like been something that I've like really had to think about, because it's not just like, oh, do I want a couple of beers at the end of the day? It's like you have to think about like, how tired have I been the week before? And then what do I need to accomplish tomorrow? Because if I'm trying to get up at 6 a.m. tomorrow and then I'm going to stay up and drink, then that's not going to happen. And so I think it's much easier to say no to everything that you need to say no to when you know what your priorities are. My priorities are to get up at 6 a.m. and run and shower, and drinking is not aligned to that priority. My priority is to grow my brand within the channel. So saying yes to a podcast is a priority, but saying yes to a huge project that's going to take a lot of my free time that I would be putting towards engaging in a podcast is not going to get me to my goal. So I'm going to say no.
In the long run. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it almost touches on like existential kind of like, what's your virtue, what's your values in life. You're talking about kind of like priorities, but would you go as far to say that you've got an end goal in mind of where you're trying to go, of where you're trying to get to?
Yeah, I think it's really hard for me, as I turn 24 at the end of the month. And I think when you ask any question about like even where I want to be in 5 years, it's really, really hard for me to conceptualize that. I think that there are a few things that have rang true for a test of time of kind of goals that I have. Some of which I feel like are still in the ideation phase, that like it feels too scary to even say them out loud. And some of them feel very safe, and those are the ones I probably talk about the most. Yeah. But I think that I'm in a conflict with myself. A big thing that I've been starting to engage a lot with mothers that work. That's been a topic that's been very interesting to me. And I interviewed some of the women that won Women of the Channel, the CRN Channel Chief Awards. I interviewed some of the women, and we talked about that topic of being a mom and an employee for an extended period of time. And it's come up in several conversations that I've had with women in the industry, because I feel like that's what's always competed for me, to like feel like I'm putting in my all at work and feeling like I'm putting in my all into my personal life. I feel like I have always said I'll either work or be a mom, but I'm not going to do both. And as I'm getting older, I'm seeing my desire to work and be a mom both grow at the same time. And I'm not in a position to be a mother anytime soon, but I'm just thinking about those things of like, am I going to give up my career one day to be a mom? And that's always been like, of course I am. And the lines are starting to muddy a little bit of like, what do I want? And so I think when you think about like long-term goals and your priorities, I try to just think about things that I know will always be true. Like I will always be grateful that I got more sleep. I will always be grateful that I have more time. And so I try to think through the things. I'll always be grateful that I saved money and didn't go on that really expensive trip with people that I don't even align with in values. So I think
there's three things under there that's incredible to unpick, and I'm gonna quickly rush them because I want to just talk to you about aligning on values real quick. Yeah. The first thing is I heard something by Alex Hormozy recently, which said you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. Mm-hmm. And this for me is this crux around, and I'm writing a book about a little bit about this right now, which is that like becoming self-aware of who you are and why you are the way you are is so much more important than I think than going after like existential things like money or cars or career and all of this stuff. Only because you'll only rise to your system. So what we need to understand is like, why are we the way we are? What narrative are we playing out? And where am I trying to go, right? And that kind of ties me into, you were talking about mothers, for example. Discover Phenomenal, my company, at the start of this year, we announced that it's free sales training for all single parents, mothers and fathers, right? That get free sales training for life now because of my personal story of where certain things I've experienced in my youth. I've never been a single mother, but I've experienced elements of that. And for me, I think it's crucial that we find ways of taking, I call it plus minus equals, about mentoring, about giving back to those that just need a little extra help up and that want to come on the same kind of journey that we're going, but that's a whole new conversation. And the reason I'm asking all of these things is, how did you start to realize that these were important to you? This idea of aligning to, say, mothers in business, people in business that have got children, but they've also been able to find the balance. When did you start to like see that as a priority? What was the turning point for you to kind of like, I care about this?
Yeah. I think I think that the best place to go to see what you're the most interested in doing from a goals perspective is to think about what you're the most afraid of. So I think that for me, the thing that I was the most afraid of was that I would get to a point in my life where I would be a mom and working. And I think that's why I always said, like, I'm going to be a mom or I'm going to work. Because I felt like if I just kept saying that, it would be true. And I find myself wanting to be a working mom. And so I think that when I started to like really get honest with myself of like, why do I feel like, one, that I have to decide right now when it's not even a reality? And two, why do I feel like I have to justify why I would want to work or why I'd want to be a mom or why I'd want to work and be a mom? I don't think that is something that men feel like they have to justify. And so as I started to think about like just kind of all of that and the fear that was wrapped in that and just like the internalized misogyny and bias that I had towards myself of what I was capable of and what I could accomplish, I think that I just started to turn to the women in the space that I see doing it. And the curiosity stemmed with me asking, I asked them the question, why? And I just sat there and they're like, what do you mean why? And I'm like, why do you guys do this to yourselves? Like, don't you want to be at home with your kids, or don't you wish that you didn't have kids so you could fully focus here? Like, don't you feel like it's prohibiting you from career growth? And we had a really honest conversation about like how it's about priorities and it's about knowing when to lean in where, and knowing where your capacity is and having a really good relationship with yourself. And if you're doing it with a partner, having a really good relationship with your partner to be able to talk about when you're at more of a capacity or less of a capacity, and just being able to be really honest. And you brought it up at the beginning about the evolved peer groups and about how it's not all about the business. You actually find it's very much about the personal. I think one of the great things that ConnectWise does generally, but I think that we're doing a lot better as a society post-pandemic, is realizing that people aren't just business and they aren't just personal, but those things are deeply integrated and that they really do inform. Like how your personal life is going does show at work, and how work is going for you does show in your personal life. And trying to separate those two and act like they don't inform each other is like a level of insanity. And so I think that just getting to have these conversations with women that has stemmed from finally bringing something that I was afraid of to the light and getting feedback on it has made me realize that it's actually a great opportunity to be able to serve others in your home and outside of your home throughout your life, as long as you're prioritizing taking care of yourself. And so that's why I've really focused on like building some healthy habits. I make a lot of decisions recently through the lens of like, is this something that I would want my future kids to see me doing? It actually really helps me make good decisions about like what I want to be doing, because I want to be treating my body in a way that I know will represent myself in the long run, because that's how you build habits. You know, you talk about systems that you build, like the habits that I'm going to be building my life on in 10 years when I have kids are the habits that I'm creating now. So just being mindful of how every single day informs your future, I think.
I think it's kind of cheesy, but not what you've just said at all. I think what I'm about to say is kind of cheesy, but for me, it resonates really hard with what you're saying, which I love. And I'm going to share 2 points on this because we've mentioned values. And I think this, for me, really pivoted my life. I can't remember when I watched it, but I watched a Matthew McConaughey video, and he talked about how his hero is nobody else. It's himself in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And you're never going to meet your hero. You're going to aspire to be this thing. And I think for me, I was interviewing a leader about, maybe 6-7 years ago. And I remember saying to him, are you the person today that you wish you had? Because we were talking about mentorship. And I think 9 times out of 10, for me anyway, in my experience, that you experience this love and kind of like the way your father kind of like nurtured you through incentivization. If you have that, you see the power of it and you think, I want other people to feel that good, right? And you do the same, which is why you're in the career that you're in. The opposite side of it, if you don't have the mentorship, if you don't have the guidance, if you don't have the individual saying, look, I believe in you enough, and if you need an incentive, here it is, but I believe, if you don't have that, you become that person because you know what it's like not to have it. So you become the person that you feel you need. And I resonate slightly more with that. The reason I'm saying all of this, it comes back to values for me. Aligning my values, and there's three, and I'll share those in just a second, but when I align my values, and I aligned my values back in 2020, because I really took stock, I think, I can't remember how old it was, 28 years old, roughly. I really took stock of like, okay, I don't like the way I've showed up for the last 5-6 years in my professional career. I need to change. A few things happen, I need to change. So I aligned, well, what are 3-4 things that I aligned to that I'm never going to negotiate on? And I came up with 3 values, which to this day hold true, which is truth, love, and intimacy, right? And I'll quickly define those because 2 of those words I think get lost. The truth piece is, can I be real? Can I understand who I am, and can I give that version out? Then can I have love or give love, which is to me acceptance. Can I accept what is, not what could be or what was? Can I just accept what is? And then I think you can have intimacy. And I think a lot of people misunderstand intimacy. They think it's physical, be that a hug or whatever else. Whereas intimacy is like, I see where I'm going. Can I align to that? And the people I'm around, can I see where they're going? And can I align to that? And where I feel a lot of people are maybe misguided is that we're not ever given the chance to explore what that question is. And what it sounds to me like you're saying, Anna, is that like this vision of where you're trying to go is like, it's not set in stone. It's not like I have to have this, but I know there's a trajectory of like, is there a way of me blending motherhood and career and finding a way of crossing, dancing between those 2 lines, which I love. So conscious of your time, really value what you shared so far. If you were to think back of now that you're at your point of your career now, what would you give someone listening to this now? They're 19, they're 20, maybe even older, starting over again. Vicky spoke to us about at 30, she started over. What would you give back information-wise of like how to set yourself up for success early in a changing career or starting out? What would you give back?
Yeah. There's so much.
2 points. Let's narrow it down. Concise 2 points. What's one like absolute non-negotiable, and then what's like this as well?
I think that imitation is a form of flattery. But I think that imitation in the ways that we show up is something that I wish I had had a conscious hold on earlier. And what I mean by that is that you always hear the cheesy saying like, just be yourself, be you, just show up and be you. That's good enough. It's so cheesy, but I have gotten to a point in my career that I wish that I had gotten to before I'd even started, which was that I have a lot of anxiety, especially around the workplace, and it is all around people pleasing, which my second one will be about. But this like sense that everybody needs to like me made me change up how I showed up frequently. And I used to consider it a strength that I can show up like a chameleon in any situation and kind of fit the mold that needs for that time. Like if I walk into a room and the energy's low, I'll be dancing around. And if I walk into a room and the energy's really high, I'll be a fly on the wall. And I always saw that as like a good thing. And I think in some ways it is, but I realized that I would get to the end of the day and I'd be really anxious about how I showed up during the day. And I realized that stemmed from the fact that I wasn't showing up as my authentic self, and that the days that I actually showed up with the energy that I had, with my best foot forward, thinking about who I want to be and how I want to be perceived and showing up and aligning towards that, it made it easier to sleep at night. And that was kind of the big point that I want to make, is that like you have to be a version of yourself that you can fall asleep with at night, and that you're comfortable with, and that you stand by the decisions that you made, and that you make the best decisions that you can with the information that you have. And then you have to forgive yourself and give yourself grace. So I think that's one thing, is like be myself and all that entails. And then when I make a mistake, like have grace for yourself in the same way that you would for others, is one piece. And then the second one, was a piece of advice that I was given by an EMEA partner when I think we were in Copenhagen in like this cocktail bar after a pizza night. And James, we were talking about perfectionism, and James said to me, like, Anna, have you ever thought that you can be excellent without being perfect? Like, you can do excellent work that isn't perfect and it can still be excellent. And that was when my mindset like really shifted, that it's not like perfection is the only thing, that it's either bad or perfect. It can be excellent, and excellence just looks like showing up and doing your best. And again, it's that grace with intent. Like, my intent is to do the best that I can. I need to document where I maybe failed and where I'd like to move forward. But it was a first pass. It was a first try. I'm a working version of myself, and I'm allowed to extend grace. And so I just think that building your career, being in your career, ending your career, one thing that I think I'll never take for granted is the amount of grace that I give myself throughout the years, because I think it's just all a lot harder than we talk about.
I want to relate quickly to the first piece you said about, I wouldn't say it's imposter syndrome of feeling like a fraud, but I would certainly say being in sales, for a lot of years, I thought it was about being a person that somebody needs me to be, which comes back to childhood wounding of like, I need to be this version that's not Alex because Alex is unlovable or is irritating or whatever, right? So that attachment was there. And then you get to the end of the day and you go, well, who am I? Who am I actually? Because I've been this guy all day. I don't know who he is, but I've been that guy because that's what I think the world needs of me. And that was really hard for me to navigate through that, because it's like, well, hold on a second. These people like that. And that guy's making money, though. And that guy's confident. And that guy's this. But underneath it all, I was like, I haven't got a clue who I am. And it took the facade getting ripped away from me in 2015 to try and actually have the space to explore that question of like, who do I want to be? Opposed to like, who do I think you need me to be? Massive topic. And on the kind of like the flip side of that, it's then, well, what is left at the end of the day then? How do I even find that question of undoing the narrative of who I think I am? And that's why, for me, I had to go back to my values. I had to go back to, well, who do I want to be? What have I enjoyed being? What do I not enjoy being? And going back to that, man, this has gone almost philosophical. This is borderline therapy. This is great.
I know that all resonates so much, Alex.
Yeah, it's hard, eh? It's really, really hard because there's no guide for it. There's no. And the biggest thing, this is why I love mentors, because I've always had mentors that are like 30 years older than me. Like Mike Symes, one of the guys that helps me with branding right now. He's like 63 years old. So he's 30 years older than me. And I listen to him talk and I'm like, wow, like just incredible. Andrew Plunkett, another one of my mentors. I don't know. I can't remember how old he is. I think he's like 49. So he, again, 17 years older.
Yeah.
And it's because you need to be around these people that have been there. They got the battle wounds. And I think for me, just to echo on what you've said, the best thing I think I should have done in my 20s is kind of have a rough idea of where I want to go. Like, you are light years ahead of where I was, right? Because at 22, I thought his life was about making money, and found out pretty quick it's not. But for me, I wish if I could go back, which that sounds like regret. I don't want to regret anything. I love who I've become. The only thing I would suggest back would be find somebody or a group of people that have done what you would think you roughly want to go and do, and just say to them, once a month, how do I buy you lunch? Just once a month, and just sit with them and listen, and learn that skill of like asking good questions but listening to the answer. And I call it listen to understand, never answer. Really, really powerful. Anna, I'm conscious of time, so any final closing thoughts? Any kind of any kind of like words of wisdom you want to share back?
Yeah, one thing that resonated from that is like, that's Vicky Bruns is my mentor, and that's been one of the big things, is that a lot of times my anxiety manifests as like rehearsing tragedy. And so I'll play over and over again, like how the situations can go bad. The best part about having a mentor is that a lot of the situations that I'm playing out, she's actually already played out and at this company. And so I'll be like, well, I can't do that because this will happen. And she was like, well, I did that and that didn't happen. So she is able to give me like the courage to stand on in situations. And I think that's one of the best parts about mentors. And like, I mean, even this podcast, like Vicky brought me up to you and you're like, oh my God, I remember, I love Anna. Like, let's have Anna on. And so like, you just have somebody who's advocating for you. And in a world where you're always your biggest advocate, it's so good to be able to bring people up with you and to have others bring you up. And so I appreciate your podcast and what you're doing, Alex. And I'm so grateful that you had me on and that you gave me a platform to kind of share some of the things that have resonated with me in my first couple of years post-grad and in the real world. And I hope that this has been valuable for the community that listens as well.
Well, there's always value in people as real as you, Anna. So it's perfect. And just to share where I would like, so I created this thing at Amazon called Plus Minus Equals, which is around, it's all built off Jim Rohn's, the average of the 5 people you spend your time with, which there's arguments to and for it, but let's just say we agree with it for the sake of this conversation, right? I have this argument that you're actually the average of the 3 people you spend your time with, because you're the first and last person you spend your day with. You're the first person you talk to in the morning and you're the last person you speak to at night, right? So if we can just subscribe to that for a second, the 3 people in the middle is what I call plus minus equals. And this is all built on the foundation. You've got a rough idea of what you think you'd like to go and do. And you will get kind of like swayed to different ways throughout that, which I love. The plus minus equals though is like, be around the plus is someone that's done what you want to go and do, and it can guide you through. Vicky in this instance is like, don't worry, that's not, you don't have to catastrophize that won't happen because of this, right? It won't play out like that. You need the minus because that is someone that wants to be who you are. And this is the amazing thing, especially what James was saying at this cocktail bar after the pizza night, right? Where you are today is incredible for where the Anna was at 19. And the Anna at 19 would be like overwhelmed by who you are today. So there's somebody that is Anna back at 19 that would love to understand what it's like to be Anna now. So you need to give that back because that gives us like perspective of who we are. But then you need the equal, be that a partner, a sibling, a friend, whoever. You need someone that's in a similar place to you right now that gets it and they understand and they can go, well, actually, I think this about that. And they offer perspective, right? Have you ever seen that thing of like when 2 people are stood in front of like 96 or 69, it's like some people see it as that, some people see it as that. It's having that perspective of like, I see things differently to you, but it's about mutually agreeing and finding a common ground around it. And I think for me, it's so important to have these people around us that are like, because just to quickly finish on this point and share, although I make Discover Phenomenal sound like it's this big company, it's me and like 3 other people, marketing and admin. And like the loneliness, this is where back to Evolve, funny enough, the loneliness that comes in with isolation of like, you feel like you're on your own doing things. I got to film this, I got to write this bit of content, and then we're going to run this podcast, and I'm going to London, I got to fly to New York, whatever, right? It's lonely. And I think for me, having moments like this where I can connect to humans like yourself and realize, oh man, like Anna gets it as well. That's what it's about. I think it's crucial to find those people that help you not feel isolated and alone.
Yeah, it's seriously crucial to survival.
Like no cap, no word of a lie. Like honestly, survival would be the right word of like, because doing something on your own, there must be research around businesses that start as single founders and businesses that start with like multiple founders or people that start ventures with friends and other things. Just that camaraderie and all of that good stuff. Anna, we're up on time. I feel like you and I could talk for another 2 or 3 hours about 15 different topics that have been covered on here. Any closing thoughts? Any final kind of like one word things, one answers, one sentence that you feel could wrap this up?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Remember that you can be excellent without being perfect. And see you next time. How about it?
I love it. Anna, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you, girl. And we'll speak very, very soon. Thank you.
Yep. See ya.